Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome to episode 151. So remember, for the show notes for this page, you can head on over to NacheSnow.com/151. Any of the links that we mentioned in the show will be over there. If you love this podcast, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, a thumbs up would be amazing. And of course, wherever you're listening, please subscribe. Okay, so what are we doing today? Today, we are talking about social wellness, and LaKaye and I are going to give you what we plan to do in the next 6 months. We just do 3 things a piece, and we hope that it inspires you to improve your social wellness. We will let you guys know a little bit more about the dimensions that we decided on. So if you listen to episode 149, we were going back between 5 or 8 dimensions. We are now at 10, but we have really good reasons why. And one of the dimensions that we added, we're probably going to do it next time. And I bet you can guess which one we're going to choose because it's going to be so much fun. But anyway, you might ask, like, why are we doing this? And it goes back to, for those of you guys who've been following me for a while, you know that I created the Life Cleanse Journal, which forces you to look at 10 aspects of your life. It has you, not forces you, but you know what I'm saying. But it has you answer questions, and then from those questions, you actually write down some action items that you want to do so you achieve and accomplish your goals, and you are able to live this well-rounded life. So that was the thought of it. So this really just fits into my purpose, my brand, kind of what I want to inspire people around me to do, because I do feel like it's important to have a sense of perfect purpose, understand what you're working towards, to also be to also be productive, and also find time in order to do the things you love. So all of that kind of like fits together. So that's why for both LaKaye and I, we are hoping that this really forces you to look at certain areas of your life and make necessary changes now and not wait to do them. And so the first change we're going to cover is social, because we just think that that's important. You need like an ecosystem. And so we'll get into kind of the definitions of social, how a few places define it, and how we're doing it in its simplest form. But now I want to hear from you guys. With my old podcast, I used to do this thing called Speak Pipe, where my guests could leave messages. And so I have that again. So if you go to NacheSnow.com/151, or if you even just go onto the main podcast page on Nache Snow, you will now see where at any time you can leave a voice message for me to listen to. And so please feel free to leave me a voice message. I will listen to all of them, and maybe some of them will be featured on the podcast. If you wanted to be a private message, please say, please don't share this, and then I'll make sure to listen to it, but not share it. But other than that, potentially you could be featured on the podcast. And so I would love to hear from you what you plan to do to improve your social wellness. So please head over in the next week or so before the next episode. And well, not the next one, but the one after that, which will feature LaKaye and I. And leave us a message because we want to hear from you. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into the episode. Hello, LaKaye, and welcome back.
Hey, Nache. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, really excited today because today we're going to go into one of the 8 dimensions that you mentioned last time, social. But I wanted to bring something up. So I did do some research about why some people use 5 dimensions versus 8. And it's weird. Everybody has like their own little thing. So a lot of times when people mention the 5 dimensions, they were like, these are the 5 key elements. Like it's whatever that group deemed the most important, kind of getting back to what you were saying, right? Some people choose maybe to take that emotional piece out of it for whatever reason. Because Gallup wasn't the only one. I found some other ones too that did 5 dimensions or 6 dimensions.
Oh, well, what did the sixth dimension one leave out?
I forgot what the 6 dimension left out because I closed out of those articles. But what I wanted to bring up to you is I found a 9 dimension and a 10 dimension. And I kind of like the additional dimensions.
Ooh, okay, okay. I'm ready. Let's hear it.
So, as a little bit of background, as I was like looking up the different dimensions, what I found is several schools use it for student wellness and they use it in their wellness center. And so when I went to Ohio State University, the one that they added was digital wellness.
Digital wellness.
Yes.
Okay.
And digital wellness is a digitally well person considers the impact of virtual presence and use of technology on their overall well being by taking steps to create sustainable habits that support their values, goals, community, and safety.
That is a big mouthful for me needing to stay off of social media for extended periods of time. That's what that's telling me. But it's interesting, and I know you have another one. Do you want to talk about the other one first before I give my feedback, or?
No, no, no. Give the feedback on this one because the other one is very different. So I want to hear your take on that one too.
Okay. I am so glad that that's being recognized as something that people should study. So I don't know if the listeners remember that I teach at a university, and the students who I'm teaching, the first thing I have to do when I come to class and we start, I have to tell them to put their phones face down and let me see your faces so I can start teaching for the day. And that's not something, even when you and I were teaching together, that wasn't even a thing because I think there were flip phones back then. So it wasn't as addictive. But it's a real issue. If you could think it at some jobs where they tell you you can't have your cell phone, and then you'll see people, like, imagine a fast food restaurant. You're not supposed to be on your phone in a fast food restaurant, but people are going to pick up their phones because it's become more of an addiction, I think, in the way that the social media giants have designed it to be like a stimulant. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that somebody's studying it, and I think it's appropriate that they're studying at the college level.
I thought that was great too. And another one that I absolutely love, and this is when I found the 9 and then I found the 10,
Mhm.
but the 9 came from rollins.edu and they added creative wellness. Boom!
Ooh.
And they say the creatively well person values and actively participates in a diverse range of arts and culture experiences as a means to understand and appreciate the surrounding world.
You know what's interesting about that? Sometimes I get a lot of pushback when people ask me what I do and I tell them I'm an artist or I teach in the fine arts department or have my degree in fine arts. The first thing people will say to me is, "Oh, I can never be creative. I'm just not a creative person. I just don't know how to do any of that." Not realizing that creativity can be built into any activity, really, because
Yeah.
even let's say the average office worker, you could create a new way to, I don't know, I don't know what to say about the average office worker. I shouldn't have started there. I couldn't finish it. But maybe there's a creative way to, or a different way to file, or an energy that you bring to the office that's not necessarily tactile art or visual creativity, but creativity can come from so many different sources.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited that that's there, and I'm going to make that number one whenever I talk about these dimensions.
Yeah, I thought that was lovely. So I just thought maybe we'll go with 10 dimensions of wellness. And so for the listeners out there, the 10 are physical, emotional, creative, environmental, financial, occupational, intellectual, social, spiritual, and digital.
And once again, I think you are pretty much at 100% on all of those.
I was
I mean, creative. You fancy yourself
I struggle with
a stained
digital.
glass artist. Yeah.
But today we're going to do social.
Okay.
And before we get started, I just want to mention or read off some of the definitions or sentences or bullet points that some places have under social wellness. And so the one from Ohio State says the socially well person has a network of support based on interdependence, mutual trust, respect, and has developed a sensitivity and awareness towards the feelings of others.
I did a little bit of research as well, but everything that we're finding is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So, with this being like a liberal, I don't know, would you consider this? It's not, it can't be a science because there's room for interpretation and all of that. It's studied on an academic level. So, let's just call it a liberal art. Or is this a social science?
So it's interesting. I also looked up your Dr. Swarbrick.
She ain't my doctor. I barely know the lady, you know?
But the lady who came up originally with the 8 dimensions. And it's interesting because in her bio it says Dr. and hopefully I'm saying her name right, Swarbrick is the associate director of the Center of Alcohol and Substance Use
Hmm.
Studies and a research professor in the applied department of GSAP. Over her career, she has made significant contributions to the body of literature in occupational therapy, nursing, and community behavioral healthcare practices, focused on topics such as the 8 dimensions of wellness, and then he goes into wellness. So it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. It is seems like it potentially is kind of research based,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I don't know if it's scientific or not. I have to actually dig a little deeper. Honestly, I haven't had time, but if I find something, I'll definitely put it in the show notes. So maybe, but I don't know.
It's just so many different types of interpretation. Let me show you or let you know what I found. So I was looking at this. This is a medical center called Firelands Health,
Mm,
and I was looking specifically for ways to improve your social wellness. So theirs was surround yourself with good people, practice self care, engage in hobbies and extracurriculars, stick to a healthy routine, and continue working on better communication.
mm,
It seemed like theirs was more focused inward so that you could be a better person outwardly to your friends.
mm-hmm. So for us, we'll stick to the inner, probably for our examples. But okay. So with that said, folks, LaKaye and I are just going to go back and forth, and we're going to let you know 3 things each that we're going to do, let's say, in the next 6 months in order to improve our social wellness. LaKaye, would you like to kick it off?
I knew you were going to do that. Okay. I sure would, Shay. I sure would. And you know why I said yes to that? Because saying yes more often is my number one thing on my list
Oh!
of things to boost my social well being. So
Mm,
I discovered, thanks to COVID, that I enjoy my alone time.
mm,
And I had gotten very used and comfortable to being in the house just by myself. I was teaching online. I really didn't have to be social. And I always thought of myself as a social person until I couldn't. Then I was like, oh, this is great. And I got too used to it. So, in order for me to improve upon building my social well being, I need to say yes to more activities that take place outside of the house. I'm
mm,
getting better. And opportunities, to be honest with you, really only started opening back up maybe, what, 6, 7 months ago.
mm-hmm,
So
that's
now
true.
that I'm kind of in the full swing of things, I need to make a conscious effort to say yes to more things.
I like it.
Thank you.
My first thing is going to seem like a cheat because I signed up again for another stained glass class.
Ah.
Even though I feel like now that kind of, it technically can go into the creative category now, right?
Yes.
It
Yes.
can.
Creative wellness.
Okay, I'm going to think of another one. But I might double dip. And let me explain why that I put this one under social. Is because when I'm in the classes, I meet different people. Even in conversation, I tell them like, hey, on nights and weekends, I do this Studio 78 podcast and do this other stuff. And like even this class, someone gave me an idea for a guest, which I'm going to email. And she's a caterer, like this amazing caterer out in Virginia. But by doing this class, it does scratch that creative wellness thing, but it also scratches the social wellness too, because I actually talk to people and I get to know their story and make connections with them. And so to me, I'm already kind of like busy this season, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to force myself to go to this class once a week for 9 weeks. So to me, it's forced me to get out there and be social. So I'm going to keep it as my number one.
And just as a quick aside, do you consider yourself to be an extrovert?
Yeah, I have tested off the charts. I'm
So,
like the little square. Last time I tested, I was like all the way to the top. But I think I'm different now. That was like probably 10 years ago. I probably need to retest.
how did you fare when lockdown first began and we couldn't do anything or go anywhere? Did that affect you in any kind of way?
No, because I was still working.
Okay. Okay.
So I just feel like there were times that I was at home, but because I was still working and going into work, like no, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well.
I
That's
mean,
probably
I
a
don't know
good
if it would
thing.
have been different, but the thing is, when the periods I was at home, I enjoyed it. I was fine. I was like, okay, yeah. I
Never
mean,
mind then.
I think because I was like talking to people. I had like my little text chats or just with people. And yeah, I had like my projects and stuff.
Mhm.
So as long as I always have something to do. And so even if I'm not around people, I'm okay, which is why I'm thinking maybe I'm not like an extreme extrovert anymore.
So I realized during the pandemic that I did a little bit of deep diving into introvert versus extrovert because I realized when they called me back into the school building, I was very hesitant to go. But I enjoy teaching and I love working with my clients. But what I came to understand is how you derive your energy. So
Mhm.
after a photo shoot or after a long day of teaching, I'm completely wiped out and I need to just sit in a room by myself or just veg out on something. As
Mm.
opposed to extroverts, you get your energy from people. So
Mhm.
after being around people all day, you're still raring to go. And it actually it depletes you to not have energy around you. That's what I came to understand. Do you feel like
Mhm. Yeah, once I'm like around people, I'm charged. Unless it's like in a situation where, maybe they're just talking about something that's really uninteresting. But for the most part, even when I get home from work, I'm like, okay,
what's
what,
next?
what's next? The only time I'm not like that is if maybe it's like decision fatigue and it's just
Mm,
been just a long day or something. But other than that, when I come home, I'm like ready for part two of the day.
okay, see, we are very different in that respect.
So what's your number two?
My number two is I want to get better at creating opportunities together. That's what I
Mm.
wrote down. So I'm in the middle of a move, which is a huge transition for me, but my goal is to set up my new spaces to create an entertaining space.
Mm.
So everything I'm gonna put my energy toward inviting people in and sharing my space. Like right now, I haven't really let anybody in my house because everything's always a mess. And I see my Pinterest boards and other people's houses. I'm like, man, I can never let anybody over here. But that also is a detractor from me having good social wellness because it's important to me to spend time with friends. And with the economy being the way it is, going out all the time is not always it. So
Mhm.
I want to definitely create space and opportunities for gathering within my own dwelling.
So I'm gonna have Allison, who's a total boss, back on the show this season. And in talking to her, I was just talking to her about like how I kind of wanted to get back in the game as far as putting myself out there, because I did take a little bit of a hiatus the past year and a half ish. So she actually sent me 2 co-working spaces that are in DC, and she was like, maybe you should reach out and see if they want you to do some workshops or something like that. And about a week or so after I interviewed her, it was like last week. Well, for you guys listening out there, probably a month ago. Or who knows when you're listening. So
You know,
who knows? But there was one in particular called, I think it's pronounced iPade, IPADE. And it's a Black owned co working space in DC. And so Allison forwarded me an email because they're having a market and they were looking for vendors. So the other day I actually emailed them and was like, hey, I sell the Life Cleanse Journal. I would love to sell at your market. And they were like, oh my God, yeah, we'd love to have you. So in October, I'm going to sell the Life
ooh,
Cleanse Journal at this market, which I'm really excited about. It will be on October 1st. So, really cool. So, yeah, I think this episode is going to come out on the 25th. So, if anybody wants to come and say hello to me, I will be at iPaid Working Space selling the Life Cleanse Journal. I'll autograph it for you. And
you
so
know,
that's me getting out, networking, and
you're just going to
talking
gather
to the
everybody's
people.
energy to make you stronger, just like a supervillain in cartoons.
I'm like, yeah, but I'm really excited about it. It's from like 12 to 3 that day. And yeah, it seems like awesome. It's on 1700 Connecticut Avenue. And yeah, it should be cool.
That's
So
so exciting.
that's my second one.
Well, speaking of that, you're probably going to take this whole thing out of the podcast, but I'm going to say it anyway, just in case you keep it in. But I've been trying to get you to have your
Oh,
own little networking conference event. Wouldn't you all love to meet with Nache in person and you just don't want to do the planning of it. But I think that would be an amazing opportunity to develop our social well being. It could be an experiment. You could say, hey, no pressure. We're just improving our social well being.
it could. I do have people on the newsletter list who signed up way back when who said they would love to come to an event if I threw one. So maybe. And I think once I check out this space too, maybe this could be a space that I could rent out in order to have that event. So I'm not taking it off the table.
Fantastic. Just wanted you to say it out loud in front of all of your fans and listeners.
Mm. What's your
I,
number 3?
number 3 is, oh, this one kind of spans too as well.
Mm.
This one spans the digital well being and social well being. So I want to start expanding my network by creating relationships with people in the cyber world, like replying to people on IG and actually being
Mm.
more involved in conversations and talking to other photographers. And
Mm.
so I really don't do that right now. And I realize it's a huge opportunity. I see people connect from across state lines and thousands of miles away all the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
develop friendships across the country, around the world, with people who have similar interests and not just necessarily within my 25-mile radius.
I like it. I think you should do that. We'll hold you accountable. Remember,
Oh, no,
people,
thank you.
hold her accountable. Send her DM
No,
messages.
your people can be my friends. You all can send me messages. I always go on your page after you post a podcast and I reply to all your friends on all your comments. I'm like, yes, you're absolutely right. Love to have you. So you all be my friend too. We can be social together digitally.
Nice.
What's your third?
So my third one I struggle with a little bit, and it was that I wanted to make more of an effort to, like, I wrote teach here, but basically do like a workshop. So which is hilarious, goes to your in-person event. And so that was like on my third list as like a maybe. I know I'm going to do the first 2. Those are a given. I've signed up for them. They are locked. They
Mm-hmm.
are locked. The the event or workshop or whatever, that is one that I'm considering. Maybe it could be like a holiday event or something, like in
Ooh,
November, you know?
this year?
I
Are we
mean,
speaking
maybe.
into existence?
Maybe. It gets tricky. It would either be, I would say, like November or February.
Okay, I can get with that.
Yeah.
I can get with that. I'm in full support. Whatever you need me to do, I'm there. So I think your listeners we should poll them.
Yes.
So here's what I'm thinking when I envision your event. So I have a
Okay.
vision for your event.
Mm,
Something very informal, a meet and greet type of thing, just to relax your way into it before we have a major conference the following year. That's what I'm
mm,
that's what I'm thinking.
mm,
I want to know from your listeners, should we do a meet and greet? You see it? Well, I did that. I'm just saying, should we do
mm.
a meet and greet and then something more formalized, like a teaching, a lunch and learn, or something of that nature? Or do you want to just jump right into what do you call that? Educational type? What were you saying? Like a teaching,
Like a workshop.
like a workshop? Yeah, workshop.
Yeah, so meet and greet versus workshop.
hmm For the first event.
Yeah. And so what you guys could do is if you go to nachesnow.com/151, you could leave a comment or you can email me at hello@nachesnow.com. But I think it would be cool if you guys just left a comment because then we could see other comments and that would be great. I'll probably put something in the newsletter too and you can respond to the newsletter. So we'll have a couple of ways that you can respond, but please do respond. And even when I post this episode on social media, I'll put a prompt in the comments too and ask, hey, quick poll, workshop versus meet and greet. What would you guys come to if you're in the DC area?
No, they're gonna fly
Or,
out because
or I know, I don't know if anybody's flying out for it, but
well, I'll be there, and I'm about
you'll be
what three
driving. Yeah.
3 hours away. No big deal. It'll be worth it.
Yeah, but no, I think this is great. So I hope for you, the listeners out there, this kind of gave you some ideas on how maybe you can improve your social wellness. And it doesn't have to look exactly like what LaKaye and I laid out. Make sure that whatever you come up with, it makes sense for you. Give yourself space and time to do it. Like I'm giving myself like 6 months to do it. 2 things I know I'm going to do within the next month. And the other thing, maybe it might take until the beginning of next year. Give yourself some grace and make sure that whatever you list out is realistic and keep it small. That's why we decided to just do 3 apiece. Any parting words, LaKaye?
I'm so excited for this next part of the journey that we're speaking into existence. I'm looking forward to connecting with all of these wonderful people. Yeah, I'm going to give myself time to do these things too. So, yeah.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that discussion with LaKaye. Of course, LaKaye and I are taking a more simplistic approach on just how this can just help us develop our sense of connection, belonging, and develop a support system. But you can do whatever you want, whatever makes sense for you, which is why I've included plenty of articles in the show notes for you to do your own homework. And I hope that this just inspires you just to take a look and think about what your social wellness looks like. So I'll wrap it up here and I'll just say, please remember that I now have a little thing where you can record a message to me if you go over to nachesnow.com/151 or the main podcast page, you'll find it. And leave us a message. Let us know what you plan to do for social wellness. We love to hear from you. Also, hey, what if I do have this event? I've been thinking about it for a while. I do have some people in the newsletter who have said that they would come to an event if I have one. And so I don't know, even though I'm an extrovert, I don't think I like planning events, which is why LaKaye has agreed to help. And she's like, do it, do it, do it. But what do you think? In-person event, a meet and greet? Would that be cool? Or some kind of workshop on productivity? Let me know your thoughts. Please comment on the show notes page or leave a message or email, whatever you're comfortable with. All right. Well, that's a wrap, folks. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please leave me 5 stars on Apple. If you're listening on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. Wherever you're listening, please hit that subscribe button and look forward to hearing from you guys. And I have another amazing guest on next week. And remember, if you haven't already listened to Sarah Matthews' episode, it was so good, episode 150. All right, until next time, my friends, take care. Bye.